All right, now that I have a quorum and I'm on the record, we have a couple important issues tonight to discuss. However, based on what's going on today, I'm going to try and limit the time on this meeting so those of us that want to get back to see what's going on can do so.
Thank you.
With first one, approval not required. Is Billy, Dawn, is Billy representing you? Was he going to be on this, or Dawn, are you doing the presentation?
She has to unmute herself.
Who's on the other, whose phone? Is that
I'm
David?
pretty sure that's David Rowley. Yep.
David?
Hello.
Hi. Is
Hi,
that Alfred?
Jerry. Hi, Jerry. Dawn's on here.
Okay, who's the other phone? David? I mean,
Yeah.
Alfred? You know, Rebecca, who that other phone?
Then Billy Rogers just got in.
It's Billy
Well,
Rogers.
it's about time, Mr. Rogers.
Well, I'm going to tell you whatever. Miss Rebecca gave me the wrong numbers, and I couldn't get in. I had to dial the New York number.
Oh, hey, brother.
Mr. Rogers.
Brother.
Yeah.
Welcome, welcome from New
Brother.
York. Welcome from New York, Billy.
Welcome and Happy New Year.
Okay.
God bless
Billy,
you, but I scared to death because I had to dial a New York number. I couldn't dial the number on the sheet she gave me.
Oh, okay, Dawn, I'm assuming that Billy's going to do the presentation for you?
Yes, he can do that. If there's any questions, I'm here.
Okay, so we'll leave it in Billy's good
Is it
hands. We'll proceed to see, I don't see, Dawn, any problem that we're gonna have that Billy can't answer. All right, Billy, you want to make that presentation on the approval not required? Give us an
Yes, sir.
overview.
Thank you, sir. I was engaged by Ms. Rickman and her brother, Mr. Godway, to do an A&R on their property, which is 70 Hamlin Farm Road, and to do an A&R plan to fix a problem, to correct a problem that they had been on their property for years, and to create a parcel A to convey to 80 Hamlin Farm Road to include the driveway as you see it fronting on Hamlin Farm Road. And in the so that's parcel A, 683 square feet. In the back of lot 2, which is 80 Hamlin Farm Road, we created parcel B to be conveyed to Ms. Rickman's property at 70 Hamlin Farms Road. So we're not creating any more nonconformity. We're conveying an extra square foot to 80 Hamlin Farm Road, and an extra square foot, so 683 and 682 to 70 Hamlin Farm Road. So we're not creating a more non-conforming situation, and we have the frontage required for 70 Hamlin Farm Road, and I guess that's it. If there's anything else I should say, Mr. Parent, just let me know, please. Ask me any questions.
Okay, Billy.
Yes, sir.
So what you're doing is making lot 2 less non-conforming by giving it the extra 1 square foot.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Board members, any questions?
No, it's a
Fine.
trade, right? It's an even trade.
No, what they're doing, Beth, is they're giving, lot 2 is giving up 682 square feet,
Oh, I
and
see.
lot
From the
2
back.
is getting in return 683 square feet.
Yeah.
So they're picking up a square foot,
Square
making
foot.
it less non-conforming instead of even or more non-conforming, because an approval not required would not allow them to make it more non-conforming.
Right.
No new roads are being created, and it looks like sufficient frontage on both. Do all the members see where the new lot line is on lot 2, which is paralleling the paved driveway?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any questions?
So there's no new, this isn't to create a new road in the rear of Lot 1 going onto Pinecrest Way then?
No.
No, this
Oh,
is,
no.
No.
this is basically taking what appears, Bonnie, lot 2 apparently has been using that driveway
Right, right. I understand
over lot 1.
that. Right,
What they're doing now is trying to get that to say, okay, rather than having to file court actions for 20 years or whatever, they're just making an exchange. And that access will now become their access with all rights that would entitle them to do that.
okay, great. No more questions for me.
Anyone else?
I'm good.
Okay. Anyone want to make a motion that this is in fact a approval not required plan and that we approve it?
I'd be happy to move that we, that the approval is not required for the new plan for the 70 Hamblin Farm Road Trust and Hamblin Farm Realty Trust.
That the plan falls under approval not required.
Yes, okay, that's the correct, yes, whatever the correct wording is.
Gotcha, Bonnie. Any second?
Second,
Second by Beth. Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying or raising your hand.
I,
I
Aye.
see unanimous. David, how are you?
He's muted. He has to press *9 to unmute himself.
*6.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
She just went through an operation, Billy, so go easy on her.
Well, would that be Miss Rebecca? I have to
Yes.
give you, I have to make a comment about her if that's all right with the board.
Oh, Billy.
When you
That
finish.
depends on the comment.
Yeah, Billy, that depends on the comment, but hold on, let me finish first.
No, I want to finish the vote, sir.
Okay, thank you. Have I got David attention yet? David Rao?
He's on there. He just has to unmute himself.
so Rebecca, you
There we
can't
go.
unmute him as the, there he is.
Okay, David?
Yeah.
Rao?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
are you voting in favor of the approval not required?
I don't know, brother. Yes, I am.
Don't do this to me tonight. Okay, based on that, it's unanimous. I see 6 votes. Okay?
I'd like
I
to make a
have the
comment,
mic
Billy,
in
please.
my
Billy.
office.
Billy, you're on.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to make a comment in regard to Miss Rebecca Eldridge. She's been a wonderful professional woman to me since I've been involved representing the board on the 2 subdivisions, and she's always been very professional and very accommodating to help me work through with this COVID application with the plan you have before you. And I just want to tell you, God bless her. She's just a sweet woman, and she's very, 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 very good at what she does. And thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
keeping her, Billy. You can't
So-
take her
Well-
to your office.
So
Is that
Billy,
David?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
does
so
he
Billy,
know?
I guess you haven't heard that Rebecca is taking the job as the executive secretary and will be leaving us shortly.
No.
Ooh.
I will be in town hall. I will be in
Where?
town hall. I just won't be, I'll be across the hall with Jeannie Mac.
Well, don't go away. So
I will
we
not.
can't talk. We can't talk anymore. I'm sorry. What's happened? You're going to be executive for the town?
Yes. Yes,
Yes.
she's
God
the
bless you.
executive secretary. She got a
Good
raise.
choice. Good
It's okay.
choice. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you,
I
Billy.
just wanted to tell you what an asset she is to your community. Not only do I have a lot of respect for your planning board, but also for Miss Rebecca. Thank you
Billy.
very
I
much.
Appreciate it.
Well,
All right.
thank you,
I have
sir.
You're welcome. I have the Mylar in my office. I will be in hopefully Friday for a few hours if you want to come in and sign it.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll
Billy,
email everybody and let them know.
Okay, Billy, how soon is your client looking to get this on record?
Well, I would think as soon as I can get it from Miss Rebecca, and then I'll come up, pick it up, and then I'll put it on record.
Okay, let's
Why is
leave
that?
it that Rebecca, when you have the signatures, you'll notify Billy accordingly?
Yes, yep.
Okay,
Miss
Does that
Rebecca,
mean that we all need to make appointments with Rebecca?
I'll just
Yeah,
email
don't-
you the times that I plan to be there on Friday, and you just let me know, and I'll have the door unlocked so you can come on in and sign.
Okay, Friday, this Friday.
Yes,
Great.
okay.
Miss Rebecca,
yes,
what
sir.
did meeting ID 869-335-06080? What did I do wrong?
You didn't, that's just the ID. That's not the telephone number.
Where's
If
the
you call
telephone number?
The New York number is the number you want to call. And
Oh,
it's not
so I did the right thing.
You did. Yep,
Well, God bless you. Thank you.
you did. You're welcome.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Billy.
And thank you, Miss Rickman.
Thank
Appreciate the
you.
work.
Okay, I'll look forward to hearing from you, Billy.
You will, dear. Thank you,
Okay.
folks.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Bye, brother.
Jerry.
Take care, Don.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right.
Yep,
Jerry, can I do a point of order about the agenda?
yes.
Thank you.
Oh, you're not a point of order. You can ask me a question to take something out of order, Bonnie.
Oh, good. I don't know all the lingo of Robert's Rules of Order. Sorry. Anyway,
I'm getting through it, Bonnie. It's okay.
I'd like to move up the climate control discussion next because I think it's the next shortest thing on the agenda. We've already discussed the letter, and there's not many changes from the last version.
Okay, hold.
If that's
Anyone
okay
have
with David Mead Fox.
Anyone have a problem with that? Any member? Okay. All right, let's quickly take it out of order. David, were there any changes? David Mead?
There were, I would say, no material changes. There's some changes of formatting. For example, the climate emergency declaration that was passed was highlighted what that actually was in a different way, and put in bold near the end of the letter what our recommendation is to the select board and the town administrator. But it's basically the gist of it's the same.
Okay, a question on adaption.
Yep.
I think I'd like my attitude towards that is I think I'd prefer if it were worded and maybe this is what you're trying to put through is the adaption is reacting to climate change through activities such as raising roads, revising zoning bylaws, building codes. I'm just wondering, David, whether or not adaption is reacting to climate change is through activities that, I'm trying to kick out, that may be necessary through appropriate I want to say committees, but not necessarily. It wouldn't be committees, through appropriate,
Processes,
what was that, Beth?
processes,
Yeah, through appropriate processes or appropriate channels that may require or review to the following: raising roads, revising zoning bylaws and building codes. What I'm trying to get, and maybe it's already there and I'm adding too much to it, is just to let them know that, and to emphasize, these are some of the things that may or may not need to be done. But if they need to be done, they should be done by the appropriate boards, committees, such as building, conservation, and things of that nature. But if all the members feel it's clear as it is, I'm okay with it. I just don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, Jerry, I actually agree with that. And that's what I was trying to say right before that section where I put, and this is a change from last time. I put that we believe these adaptation and mitigation areas are worthy of study and consideration by responsible town departments and boards / committees. I think that's the way, if I heard you right, that's kind of.
Okay, okay. I'll be honest, David, I didn't pick up that last sentence. I had moved to the adaption.
Yeah.
All right, so the board is not specifically advocating for the following in this letter, but they do believe they are worthy of study. No, you know what, David? I think that's, now putting that in context to the two, I think that's fine in my mind.
Okay,
I think that does it. Yeah.
okay.
Anyone else? Bonnie?
I just to say, I'd rather than reacting, I'd rather just say preventing damages to the damage, preventing damage due to climate change. Through rather than just
where are
reacting
you?
to climate change.
She's under, I think she's under adaption, right?
adaptation,
I am.
and reacting to climate change?
Yeah, instead of just reacting, adaptation is really preventing the potential damage to the town's infrastructure.
But the adaptation activities are a reaction to climate change. That's just stating a fact.
Okay, well, I don't want to like
It's the
overly.
question whether we're
I can
reacting
drop my comment if you want.
So Bonnie, your question is, are we reacting after or are we being proactive before?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, prevention means you're doing something before something happens because there's a high risk.
So maybe not reacting, but maybe acting.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
And that's why I gave those examples.
Yeah.
Raising roads, et cetera, are examples of action that will keep the town safer, to put it simply.
I think it's fine. I didn't mean to throw a monkey wrench in the works here.
No big deal.
Yeah.
I think it's okay. Anybody else? Beth?
I'm fine.
Olga?
I'm fine.
All right, seeing none, anyone want to make a motion to have me sign?
I'll move that we adopt the draft proposal on climate change as presented
Draft letter.
And forward to the selectmen?
and forward it to the selectmen.
Okay,
I'll second it.
Olga second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Done.
Oh,
David-
whoa,
David
wait a minute.
Rao.
I'm opposed. I'm
Okay, I
opposed.
forgot the discussion. All right, you're opposed?
Yeah, I don't agree with the premise. I don't think the board should be taking this on. I don't think
Well, the
we have
board's
the
not taking it
resources of the. Well, I don't really care. I'm just not gonna sign my name to it, so I'd like that as reflected in the record.
Okay,
It's not a
Alright,
unanimous
I'm
vote
gonna
from the
I'm
board.
gonna sign it for the board as chair,
Yeah,
So I think, Beth, if the board members are in favor, since David is objecting and doesn't like it, probably we should put the vote below that.
okay, that's fair. Yep.
Wellfleet Planning Board with a vote of 5 in favor and 1 against.
Yeah, that's fine, sure.
Is that clear enough to all the board members, including
Yeah.
David Rowell?
Yes.
Yep, yeah, that's fine. Yep.
At least the board knows that it wasn't unanimous, number one, and we're not even applying that it was unanimous. Okay?
That's all I was after. Yep. Yep.
So
Okay,
you
good.
want me to put that at the bottom of the letter, Jerry?
Yes, would you put that at the
Okay.
bottom of the letter? You may want to put it as a footnote or whatever.
Yep,
and I'll-
absolutely. I can do that.
When I come in on Friday, I'll
Friday.
sign it.
Perfect.
Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, David Mead. All right. Zoning bylaw definition, no, I'm sorry, I gotta go back to affordable. Ooh, there's a affordable dwelling units and affordable accessory dwelling units. We have the in the packet, you have information from Olga. You have information from Helen Miranda Wilson. And you have information from the Housing Authority.
Could I correct that? I submitted 2 documents, which were the collective effort of Sharon Rule Agar and Elaine McElroy and myself. And then on the tail end, Helen Miranda stepped in and gave us some ideas. And
Okay, so
I think it's confusing as to what people got in the packet. I did send an email saying, could you clear that up? But I don't know whether that went out to other people. I didn't see it.
Yes, yes. Rebecca sent out a,
I sent it out to everybody, Olga.
I didn't get it somehow.
No, because you're the one that sent it to me.
But I didn't
just
know it
forwarded it.
happened, so I'm glad to know it went out. Next time, put me on it.
Okay. The first thing I need to confirm is the board in favor of discussing a zoning bylaw for affordable dwellings in the town of Wellfleet? And all I'm looking for is a yes or no. And I'm looking for that type of vote.
Can I be clear that you're saying affordable accessory dwelling
I'm
unit?
sorry,
by-
affordable
okay,
accessory dwelling.
Just because it's very confusing.
wait, excuse
Well,
me.
it's not,
think there's a-
I'm sorry.
I think
no,
there's a
that's not-
typo.
No,
Should be accessory dwelling units.
yeah, thank you very
Yep.
much. Is the board in favor of discussing a zoning bylaw addition for accessory dwelling units?
Yeah.
An
No.
addition?
No.
Yes.
Okay. Wait a
You
minute.
said no.
Oh,
Yes.
are you
Okay,
asking
it's
for?
all
a
right. I can see everybody. I don't know if everybody can see everybody, but since I'm the chair.
Yeah.
Beth, you in favor or against?
I'm in favor of discussion.
Okay. Olga,
Be clear about your question, whether we want to entertain a second bylaw?
yes. No, it doesn't matter whether it's a second bylaw or a combination of two. Is it
Oh,
you want to discuss a zoning bylaw that would allow accessory dwelling units in the town of Wellfleet?
Aha,
Okay.
yes,
Yes,
So Olga, that's a yes.
yes, of course.
Bonnie,
yes.
David Mead,
Yes.
David Rowell.
I'm still a little unclear. Is this preclude or include affordable accessory dwelling, or are they distinct? Is it a distinct question?
It's basically at this moment,
Is
a
it,
question as
Go
to
ahead.
whether or not we want to entertain accessory dwelling unit discussion for a bylaw, whether or not it's included into the affordable aspect or whether or not it's separate. Just to discuss it for a zoning bylaw addition for town meeting.
okay, for the purposes of discussion, I'll say yes.
Okay. Good. All right, that's unanimous. What I've got, since we have that, is the next train of thought as to whether board members have had any thoughts on what I brought up at the last meeting. How are you feeling as to whether or not there should be a single bylaw for accessory dwelling units and a single bylaw for affordable accessory AADU? Or should the two be joined together as one zoning bylaw, which effectively would make a special permit available to either or by the Board of Appeals? Before you make that discussion, before I ask your input, I will tell you this. I had a lengthy discussion with town council the other day on this subject. Simply asking the question about accessory dwelling units, since town council is involved with many towns on the Cape and probably has had this come up in discussions from other planning boards. And town council did say that, yes, other towns had in fact come to her on adding accessory dwelling units. I said, I don't have anything concrete from the planning board at the present time, but would it make any sense? Or is it even possible if the board entertained a single joint accessory dwelling unit, AAD accessory dwelling unit as a special permit, leaving it to the choice of the applicant as to whatever they want at any given time? At first, she had some problems, some questions, but by the end of the conversation, she was without putting words, I would never put words in town council's mouth. She was intrigued, and with the appropriate wording,
Mhm.
felt it really could work. And so I left it. It said, okay, my next move is with the planning board is to see which way they want to go. And I will be in touch with her, and she is going to think about some of the enforcing some of the language that might happen if we did this, and the ability and what we might want to think about if in fact somebody had an AADU special permit already and they wanted to convert to an ADU under this bylaw, would they have to go through a whole special permit because they already had a special permit? Or could they just make some information available to the board, meaning the Board of Appeals, and delete their deed restriction and update it to the new zoning bylaw if it passed, allowing either or. So I have had that discussion with town council. Town council feels that probably it could go under one umbrella. We could, since we have forget about enforcement. I don't want to get into that right now. Since we have basically a good working zoning bylaw
Mhm.
for AADUs, which I think some of us that wrote it feel we might need to tweak it anyway a little bit. Certainly, I've got some things that we need to adapt if we're going to do this. We could probably merge the two fairly easy, and she's analyzing whether or not, and she thinks she can get it so it basically is one bylaw. So if somebody wanted to switch from an AADU, they would notify the Board of Appeals. No additional special permit, and they could switch over. Notifications would have to be made to the town of Wellfleet in a timely manner. Things of that nature, but I was trying to get whether or not she felt it was absolute to have two articles of one. She's leaning towards the fact, since we do have this bylaw, that we in fact could make it work. So with that all said, I'd kind of like to get a good feeling on the board, because we've got things from different people as to how they feel, board members, how they feel as to whether or not it should be two separate articles, or it should be one AADU upgraded bylaw to include the ADU by special permit. Now, is that clear to all the members? Or if you have questions before I poll it, I will gladly ask them. And I think I see Bonnie's hand. Bonnie?
Yeah, so my understanding of what the small working group submitted to us is slightly different. In other words, they submitted something that described the Special Act of 2010 that provides the affordable housing property tax exemption. And they kind of talked about the fact that there's some confusion that the AADU bylaw isn't like completely consistent with that, or they're separate anyway. They came, it sounds to me, and Olga can confirm this, that they came to the conclusion that there should just be one accessory dwelling unit bylaw, and that bylaw should reference the affordable housing property tax exemption, which already exists in law and was adopted by Wellfleet voters in May 2011. And so the bylaw doesn't have to have, the umbrella bylaw doesn't have to have all those details that the current AADU bylaw has, because most of that is covered by the housing property tax exemption law passed by the Wellfleet voters. And that enables us to have one umbrella bylaw that that gives the option of, having, that is year round, that still has a square footage ceiling, that is special permit, that has to have septic, all the requirements that are in the drafts that we're seeing, and that are in actually mainly in the current AADU bylaw. So it still has to go to the Board of Appeals, to the building inspector and all that. But that the homeowner is able, and this really goes to that excellent point that Beth brought up at the last meeting, that if you rent it out as affordable, a year-round affordable renter, and your renter has good fortune and gets a raise and goes above the income limit, there is a seamless and easy conversion to just having it legally be an accessory dwelling unit without getting the property tax exemption anymore.
And vice versa.
Excuse me?
Thank you for that, but I would say, and vice versa, so that if you have a renter that can afford it and then their circumstances change and they need it to be affordable, you can either go either way.
Yes.
It's
perfect.
fluid.
Perfect, yes. So I think that's my understanding of what the working group proposed. And I just want to see if Olga agrees with my understanding.
I think
She
you
does.
said it very well.
Okay,
Town council's not convinced of that.
Well,
She's looking into it.
good.
So
okay.
if that's what, quite honestly, Bonnie and Olga, that's what I would refer to as a housekeeping issue when the zoning bylaw that we draw and goes to town council would weigh in on, or what town council would weigh in as we're doing it.
Okay.
The discussion to merge the two
Was the question.
is the question. Basically, town council and I really, town council didn't come up with the fact when I said merge the two, because I mentioned this other tax thing, and she said she didn't volunteer the information, just make it an accessory dwelling unit and can the ADU aspect because they can get a tax exempt. She felt it needed to be left in there. She's reviewing it on the surface, but as it stands now, the question really to the board is, should this be one bylaw or do you want two separate bylaws? Beth?
So from my perspective, if it's one bylaw that clearly delineates that the tenant can be either or, affordable or not, and you do a different process maybe in those cases, so it kind of breaks out in the bylaw, it should be one, because otherwise it's really inhibiting going from one to the other.
Yeah.
So to me, one bylaw that allows for both, however we break that down, is best, if possible.
Okay,
Harry, are we the only town thinking that way?
well, I took, I must tell you, I have a long relationship with Carolyn Murray as town council with zoning bylaws, because I've been hanging around for a long time, and Carolyn's been involved with towns on the Cape as town council for quite a long time, doing a lot of the zoning bylaws. I think there are a few other towns that have AADU or something similar in nature, but they may call it something else.
Mhm.
But the idea that I had proposed to her as merging the two under one permit, where the individual who gets the permit can choose one or the other and switch back and forth, was completely new, and she had never had crossed her desk before. And that's one of the reasons why we talked.
Let's pat ourselves on the back.
Yeah.
And as I said, I used the word intrigued because I used, quite honestly, Beth, I used some of your comments with some of the problems you found. I used Olga's input as to, and I think another member as to, we got a situation where people are under the ADU and all of a sudden are really at the threshold and can't take a raise because if anybody looks over the back, they're making too much money and now they're out. Now all of a sudden we got to rent a unit that they got to find another place to live. This really keeps, if we go to one, leaving it to the owner's discretion as to which way they want to go, it makes it a situation where if they're charging below fair market rent as an ADU, because they want the tenant as an AADU, but all of a sudden they want to keep that tenant, but they get a good sized raise, they don't want to lose them. So they may choose at that point, okay, I'm going to flip over back to I'm going to flip to an ADU, notify the appropriate authorities, and I keep the tenant I have, and they got a raise, and everybody's happy. So
Yeah, but Jerry,
yes, David.
That's getting old because that's never happened, and that's the argument for all this. You're going to get thrown out. Nobody's ever been thrown out, and you're not going to get thrown out.
But
so it's a theoretical argument.
I understand that, David, but we can't. Again, it's not up to the planning board.
Correct.
To make a bylaw,
enforcement.
Passed on town meeting floor for enforcement. So we can't look at that. We've got to look at the merits on whether or not the bylaw that we're working on makes sense for the town, and then the town individuals that are responsible for that. And I think it starts with a TA and works all the way down to your building and health and everybody else and Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
They've got to make the decision on the enforcing aspect of it. The town made the decision on what bylaw they wanted. And I think, I agree with you, David, but I think that's not and should not be part of this board's discussion at the present time.
At the present time, maybe. Yeah.
Okay. So board members, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back on a consensus.
To the question.
The question, should it be a single bylaw or two individual bylaws?
What, Jerry, I'll speak.
Yeah. No,
I'm in favor of two separate bylaws.
Okay.
Because I just think they're two different animals with two different problems. Think we have a good bylaw that needs tweaking. This one's a completely new animal that's filled with holes. I would prefer to focus on what we have and improve it rather than to throw a new animal into the equation.
Well, David, okay, now I'm gonna come back to
You can't have
enforcement
then.
a little bit for the board members and say, okay, if we got a problem where somebody's making too much money and they're in an AADU, we have to hope that no one complains and we have an enforcing problem. Whereas at this moment, if we do the bylaw together, all they have to do as the owner is to notify the town of Wellfleet and the Board of Appeals that they had moved over to an ADU. Real simple.
Yeah, but Jerry, it's not just an enforcement issue. That's part of it. We have an enticement issue to draw people in to do it. And that's why I say it's not just an enforcement question, it's an incentive program. And we haven't looked at that to try to improve AADUs. We've just jumped on this bandwagon to open up the floodgates. And I'm not ready to do that.
Okay. That's David's.
That's why I want them distinct.
Yeah, David's given me the input as to where he's thinking, and I appreciate each member's viewpoints on everything. But we act on majority. So
that's fine. Yep.
I'm going to go, if there's no discussion, I'm just going to go right through. Beth, are you looking at one bylaw or two?
One bylaw that makes it the easiest for people makes it the most flexible and easiest to maneuver for the public.
Okay. Olga.
I want one bylaw, and I hope people understand that having tried to put them together and having heard from Mike Travato through his website descriptions of an affordable housing tax exemption, he keeps pounding away that these are separate. And so if they are separate, then we only have an accessory dwelling unit bylaw. And if it happens to meet the tax exemption requirements, then it becomes affordable. So it was in the actual trying to say, you know, affordable and affordable accessory. No, I'm sorry, accessory and affordable accessory that I discovered, you know, wait a second, it doesn't mesh with the fact that you don't need to go through this if you just want to get a tax exemption. And I think I've heard that there are tax exemptions without having an AADU. So that started me thinking, really what it's all about is accessory dwelling units. And the fact of going back and forth to have one or the other, that could be simplified by making September 1st, which is a requirement of the tax exemption, be the time once a year when people have to pony up what they're doing, whether they started their lease in July or not. Once a year, September 1st, we figure out which way you're going. And the idea of a raise that somebody gets in January doesn't mean their income went up. It's once a year. I think we're basing it on a tax, your income tax. If there's some better way, I'd like to know. But if we only look at it once a year, then why are we worried about, you know, tomorrow they're going to get a raise? People lose jobs 2 months later. Doesn't make
Right.
sense.
Has to
Once
go
a
forward.
year, we certify.
All right, I really don't want to get into that aspect right now because I still got town council looking at the,
Well, I wish
Well,
I
I-
could have spoken with town council myself.
well, she. right
Only
now-
$1,500
Right
an
now,
hour.
she's
Yeah.
disagreeing with you, Olga, okay? I think that's a point where as we move forward with this, we will look at, the question becomes, do you want one or two? You want to look at this as one, or do you want to look at this as two? That's my simple question to you right now. Olga,
Oh, do I want it as one?
okay, good, okay.
Sorry if I.
I
went
just
into
want, I
that.
just wanted to be clear.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Bonnie?
Yeah, I want to have it as one. And, you know, if there needs to be a section that describes how somebody with an accessory dwelling unit takes advantage of the property tax exemption by having affordable rent, year-round rents, then we can have a section that says that if necessary. But I
Yes.
want it as one.
Okay, David Mead Fox?
To answer your question simply, Jerry, yes, one bylaw.
Okay. Thank you. My point, my input, quite frankly, is the same with all the rest of you. And not because I dawned on me, but it's, if we can make it work, I think one bylaw makes it easier for individuals thinking about doing an accessory rental unit, whether it be full market value or whether it be affordable, one permit that's interchangeable without having to go back to the Board of Appeals for another special permit. They can flip back and forth, and if they want to take a tax break, they can get it under the AADU in the special tax situation. If they don't, and somebody makes too much money, they can do an ADU, and it's all one permit.
Yep.
So,
And
so,
I'll just
so
go-
Jerry,
Yeah.
At that point, if there's no restrictions on it, in effect, we're allowing two-family residents throughout the town of Wellfleet. That's what it's called. I don't care if you call it accessory or not. You're just saying we will now allow two-family residences on a single parcel of land. That's what we're creating. I just want to be clear on that.
No,
Barry, can
You
I?
can call an
speak to this?
accessory, you can call it anything you want, but in effect, you're creating a single-family residence, which we allow, but now you're allowing two-family residences throughout the town by special permit.
I said,
I want to be very clear that that's what you're proposing.
Barry, may I address this now? It's Helen.
Right now, Helen, I got to hold off. I'm sorry. Right now, I'm trying to get a consensus of the board and where the board wants to go. With David's question, David, it's been brought to us by the Housing Authority that they would like an ADU, accessory dwelling unit. So what I've done is, as you've seen, I've polled the board, and right now it's 5 members in favor and 1 against.
That's fine.
Okay, right. So yes, to answer your question, and I
Yep.
think the Housing Authority is.
Yep.
See Elaine, and I can see. Yeah.
Well, Jerry, this
Yeah,
is why
still
the
all,
distinct,
and they're basically saying, I don't know if they realized it or not, David.
Yeah.
I'm sure they did. But yes, so they're obviously realizing that, yes, by special permit, whether we call it an ADU or an AADU, that if in fact you can meet area, setbacks, sewerage, building codes, all of those aspects, and
Mhm.
get a special permit,
Yep.
this would allow, one way to say it would allow accessory dwelling units, another way to say it your way, in all fairness, would be yes, then the town of Wellfleet would be allowing 2-family units on every property in Wellfleet, in every
By
zone,
special permit.
by
yep.
special permit. Yes, the answer to
Now,
that.
I want, because this is important, Jerry, is because the state at the Title V level does not have any ADU or any poppycock like that. It's 1 single-family residence or 2-family. And the same goes for building code. There's none of this gray area, whatever you want to call it. It's single-family or 2-family. And that's very clear on how you put a structure together. And that's very clear how you deal with the wastewater. So
Yes.
that's why I want to be very distinctive. This is what's being proposed, and this is what's being asked of the voters to decide upon,
Yes,
because it's very significant.
right.
You can call it whatever you want, but as far as the state's concerned, those are the distinctions.
Yes, David, and this is where David's expertise comes in, that we all need to address, is that, okay, and that's why I kind of said earlier, all of this is subject to not only Board of Appeals giving a special permit, it is up to building department for inspection, it is up to the building code, it is up to Title.
And this is what they'll categorize it as, is a 2-family residence. They won't call it an accessory. That's just a euphemism.
Okay.
So this
Yes.
is what we're dealing with. Now the town is, I'm not saying yay or nay, but this is what we're being asked to decide and propose. Do we want to have that happen, whether it be by special permit or not? Because that's what you're creating. And when you create a single-family residence, it comes with a lot of rights that aren't described in this ADU. I can have a single-family home, 1 bedroom, and I can put 13 children in there. You can't do a damn thing about it because that's protected. So be very clear what you're proposing, what your intent is. So that's why I want to make sure if this is what we're discussing, then we'll discuss it. But you can't hide it under, oh, it's an ADU. Don't lowball it. It's a two-family property throughout the whole town.
And
Understand the significance of that.
And that's what we did when we passed the ADU.
But we did it with restrictions. And we did it with
The only restriction, I believe,
it's
David,
financial.
was financial and how much they charged.
Correct.
That in
Restriction
essence,
was in square footage too, wasn't it?
well, yeah, but this is the same square footage. It's restricted in square footage, but it's still another living unit,
Residence. Yeah.
residence on the same property.
Year-long lease
I'm sorry?
and year-long lease too.
Yeah, those are
Well,
all things to get around.
Yeah, but you can,
That's
with all
enforcement.
due respect, yes, both of them are year-round leases. But whether you have a 2-month lease or whether you have a year's lease, if you're allowing a family, a second family, onto a piece of property in either a main building or an outbuilding, you are going back to something that Wellfleet had years ago, two dwelling
That we
units
got rid of.
property that we got
Yeah.
rid of. We got rid of it because
Yeah.
of water.
And
Entitled.
now we're, yeah,
Now we're
and
proposing
congestion.
again, we're not, we're discussing it, David, and
Oh,
remember,
I'm glad
whatever
to
we
discuss it. Yes.
discuss,
Yes.
if it passes through the planning board and no other board, for example, the housing authority takes it anywhere, if it passes through the planning board, then it goes to town meeting and they effectively are the judge and jury as to how they want to see Wellfleet. We can draw the permit, we can draw the bylaw,
Oh, yeah,
But-
no. Yeah. Yeah.
right? It still falls to how, and this is, and I'll be honest, I agree with David. This is, we were successful in getting an AADU through the town of Wellfleet town meeting by a 2/3 majority. I'm not sure how we're going to do and how the town is going to accept a across the board accessory dwelling unit everywhere in the town of Wellfleet. That's,
It's a loaded gun. Yeah. I mean, it's
That's a-
worth
that's a
discussing,
question-
but it's,
I think it,
yeah, it's a
but I
loaded
think-
gun.
I think based on where we're going, and this is, sorry for the rest of the board, but I'm trying to get to David. I think, David, we do the best, if the board continues down the road, we do the best we can to writing a good bylaw. And then we do, what we do is we present it on town meeting floor, and town meeting is the final judge. We've
That's fine.
presented articles that we thought had tremendous merit, only occasionally. The town has backed the planning board, I gotta say, 99, 98% of the time. But they do,
Yeah.
on occasion, turn us down. And we've worked on some of those articles. A lot of time, a lot of energy. We thought it had great merit. It got turned down. That's
Sure.
part of our
Yeah.
job. It goes with the territory.
No, I have no problem with that, Jerry. I just want to be very clear of what we're proposing, what we're talking about, because they're very significant. And I say, when you call it one thing, in reality, it's a two-family. I want to be very clear, because that comes with a whole different set of baggage,
And
under the state, under the building code, and under health.
And I
So-
think your fellow board members have heard you loud and clear. on that
Okay, that's fine.
which is good, which that's the indication we get. So basically what I've got is a 5-1 vote here saying, let us try to proceed with a bylaw that would merge the ADU and the AADU together. And town council is thinking it through. If town council were to come back to me after I call her and let her know that we're working on it, I told her I would give her some time to think about it and not pull the rug out from underneath her and want an answer right away. She may come back and say to us, listen, I've done some sketching and it just doesn't make sense. We really should think about 2 different articles, then fine. But right now, I think she's seriously looking that this could work for Wellfleet. It may not work for other towns, but it may work for Wellfleet. Okay?
So the second part of that question, Jerry, if I may,
Yes,
in
David?
conjunction, if we're looking at a single bylaw, do we assume or do we have to take a vote and present it as such that this would replace in part or entirely our existing bylaw, should it pass? That would be the intent,
I think that
correct?
if I understand the rest of the board members, David, the way it would work is we would propose a new bylaw.
Yep,
which would merge our AADU and the ADU together.
okay,
that
so it would
bylaw would-
replace that,
That bylaw would go on the town warrant first.
okay,
If that bylaw were to pass, then at the same time, we could delete
we'd have to,
The-
but on
we would
mechanical
have to
reason, that's
delete
why I asked.
the AADU bylaw.
Correct, that's how it would work, right?
Yes,
Right.
that would go first.
Okay,
If it failed, that way we still
Then-
have the AADU bylaw. We find
Okay,
out from
yeah.
town meeting floor where the problem was with the voters. And
Yeah.
if we could get through that problem and solve it, we could bring it up again. If we couldn't, then we know we have to go to a separate bylaw. The separate bylaw
Okay.
would be allowed to come up within the next year because it would be different, because it wouldn't include probably the AADU.
yeah, and it wouldn't be a repetitive petition,
Exactly.
correct, okay,
If
yep,
any new members
yeah.
got a problem on that, that's just procedure through zoning bylaws that we have to follow when we do these kind of things.
So in a way, that's better, because should this fail, then you wouldn't be held to the repetitive petition clause, and you could act sooner and to adjust what we have or do what we want to do.
Exactly. Yes, David.
Okay, cool, all right.
Okay. That being said, okay, Helen, I've got a majority on moving forward on a 5-1 vote. So that discussion's over. So did you have a question or some input before we move on from board members?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Since, just to give context to Beth and David Fox-Mead. Jerry called me after your last meeting because Jerry and Alfred and I worked on the original AADU together when I was on the planning board. He and I had what I thought was a productive and lengthy conversation. Then we had another one, and then we had half a lengthy conversation at the Stop and Shop. I've had 2 conference calls with the housing women, that is to say, Olga, Sharon, and Elaine, and have talked with Elaine quite a bit about it. My context is that I worked on it a lot before. So that said,
Just
I al-
got me, Helen, I worked on it too.
no, I couldn't remember. David and I were on the zoning board together too. So it's a little hard for me to remember where David and I have been meeting over the years. Okay, let me get to this. I am now, after then 2 more conversations with other people today, supportive of having one bylaw. And Jerry, I think it would work. So I get it. I offered the alternative because you're still drafting. And I wanted to bring up some things that have been brought up repeatedly over the years in the 2 documents I submitted. One was an ADU and one was an AADU that was revised. Let's forget about those documents. Let's just talk about all those, Sharon's and Elaine's, and also mine, because I participated late in the day, but not that late in the day. So if you don't mind, there were some things that really jumped out at me, Olga, in what you submitted. And it's basically just tweaking, because I think it will hold up given the separateness of the affordable exemption possibility. The first thing in August draft, the one that's all in black Times Roman font, right? For ADU draft is in 6.21.2. D. David, this addresses concerns you and I both probably have. What's important is, and this was true for the AADU that we've got, what we don't want is to compromise the earth that septic waste goes into on a lot where there are more bedrooms. We don't want to do that. The issue for me is not how many dwelling units there are, but to David's point, how many bedrooms there are. So I would like to cross out in D, the word detached. New construction can involve simply putting another wall in an existing structure, according to Hillary. And that can create another bedroom. And if you add a bedroom, you have more gallons per day, and that has to be signed off on as something that lot can handle in terms of septic waste. So that would be my first thing that I would change in Olga's draft. The second thing is in F, which is we now have many, many alternative systems, sometimes referred to as IAs. And to add after, that it has to have qualify for a standard Title V system or an alternative system. And you could put in IA, alternative system, parenthesis IA. In 6.21.3 in August draft, which is the landlord-tenant agreement, this is a really hot item that unfortunately I've been waiting around in for years. There is language elsewhere in town regulations and bylaws and whatever that the term resident applies to people who may also be just part-time seasonal residents. They're taxpayers. And I suggest that you do something that makes it clear, which we had to do in the shellfish regs, which is before the word resident of the town, have domiciled resident. Okay? So that it's clear that that person is not simply renting year round, but that they're also domiciled here, because you could have a rental going year round, and as 3 different sets of people I know during the pandemic have done, they live in New York City or Boston, and they have found units to rent here, which they're renting way beyond the summer season. And one of them is going to be renting that all year, and they have plenty of money. So it should be domiciled resident, and beyond that, you can't go. The one section, Olga, that I had a lot of questions about, and town council should take a very, very close look at it, is the very last section about enforcement. Okay, are you all able to look at this? Did you all, get this electronically so you could look at the very last section? Now,
I'll get a copy.
yeah, in the original, it's penalties, okay? So in the original, AADU, it's just the first sentence there. Failure to comply with any provision of this section may result in fines established in section 8.3 of Wellfleet zoning bylaws. And then there are these 2 other items. 2, denial of rights to rent the unit seasonally, and or 3, the requirement to remove features of the accessory dwelling that make the dwelling a separate unit. In my mind, number 2, I would really want council to look at that, because on one hand, if it's not year round, that unit can't be used as a dwelling. Okay, right? But 3, that's too vague. We all know that the criteria really is just a stove. But if you're going to put features of the accessory dwelling that make the dwelling a separate unit, I think that we should ask council how much more specific we could get so that it would be obvious you couldn't have a kitchen. But how do you tell somebody they can't have a fridge? Well, you can't. So that's the only thing that I really felt needs more attention. The rest of it is good to go as far as I'm concerned. And you can take that or leave it. I appreciated being asked in on it because I did so much work on it before. But, the person I would have really liked to hear about is Alfred would have been from Alfred, because he once cornered me for easily 40 minutes or an hour in town hall and told me about all the problems of having an accessory unit, affordable accessory unit, and the cycle of renting and leases and having the qualification happen. So that's all I wanted to say about the bylaw. And the other thing that I hope you've all sorted out is that there is a whole other problem, which has nothing to do with the ZBA or with the planning board. And that is that this program has not been managed, administrated well. The management has been dysfunctional, and Jerry told me something which made my hair stand up and stop and shop, which is, you know, the assistant town administrator is actually a position that's called the assistant town administrator / planner. That is what town meeting voted to have that position consist of. That's why Mike Travato would be coming to your meetings, right? And Brian Carlson over the years. And Harry apparently, I'm going to check this, had the paragraph or the section from the job description for the ATA / planner that specifically said that person would administrate the tax exemption program for the AADUs taken out. That's not okay. We have to know that it's being really well administered, but again, that's not your problem. So I'm going to do something, I'm going to bring it up, and I'm sure other people on the select board will be supportive of having action on that. Thank you, Jerry, for letting me speak.
No problem, Ellen. Assistant, just to clarify for you, assistant TA does not attend our meetings. Is
Not
not,
for a long time.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Used to.
Used
Yeah,
to.
the other one did. The former person.
What,
did.
Jerry?
The former
Was
one.
he
did-
offended the way I dress? Come on, Mike's got to get over it.
No,
The,
that was his
the
favorite
former-
part, David.
This is not the time or the place, but it's not on the agenda, but the town planner position was, you're absolutely right, the town planner position was part of a job description that the town meeting passed as an assistant town administrator, town planner. And that's the way it went through, because it was thought that would be the only way we would be able to get
A full-time employee.
a full-time employee.
Jerry, excuse me? I really pushed for that, and there was another reason. And it's this, that, the town administrator, if you read the charter, has a whole planning component in there. And the ATA is basically, there's one position and two people are doing it, really. And the ATA was supposed to be the part of the TA's assigned jobs who would be doing those jobs that had more to do with planning, affordable housing, and so forth. And Rex was the first one who came in, and one of the reasons he was hired was because he already had, expertise with that. So it wasn't just, oh, that's the only way we can get it. It was that it was appropriate to have somebody who was within the TA's somebody functioning within the needs for that position.
And Rex made it work.
Well, it didn't work because the next ATAs kind of dropped it.
Yeah.
Every time we'd get a new ATA, I'd go into the office and introduce myself, and very gently and nicely, not the way I'm being a lot of times at meetings, I'm sorry. I would say, you are the keeper of that archive, and we have this program, and I don't know if you're aware of how important it is, blah, blah, blah. I did it every time we had a new ATA, okay? That was all I could do. Thank you.
Okay.
Jerry, Kathleen has her hand up.
let me just finish that. And Kathleen, okay. Since Rex, since Harry, no assistant town planner has had any, town administrator, assistant town administrator, has had any experience whatsoever in planning board. Yes, initially, one or two would be required to go to the meetings, but had absolutely no experience.
Hmm.
The last one, Mike leaving, had no experience at all, admitted to it on the job description. So it may have been a joint position initially, but it has fallen by the wayside tremendously. That's enough said. Helen's gone anyway. Kathleen,
I am not gone.
oh, you're still there. Okay, that's
I
just to
wanted
finish
to
up.
correct you, Jerry.
Jerry, you should know better. You can never get rid of Helen.
Sure I can.
Thank you, David.
Anyway,
That's supportive, Helen. You know that.
yeah. I know.
Yeah, that's why I said thank you.
Yes,
Good evening,
Yeah,
Jerry. Thank
Kathleen.
you for recognizing me. I've missed you, actually.
you
I'm
said
a little
that public,
rusty.
Kathleen.
It's true. I miss you. I'm in favor of one bylaw.
Okay,
I think it simplifies the process for a homeowner to go forward with this. And I do hear David's concerns with regard to creating density and two-family. But if the ZBA does due diligence, they will look at each individual application with regard to impact and environment. The other part of this conundrum is who is going to oversee this and who is going to do the enforcing? And I would like to suggest that if this does fly at town meeting, which I hope it will, that the housing authority, either through the Municipal Housing Trust or Community Preservation Funds, find it in the coffers to appoint and employ an individual that is going to look at, this program. This will add affordable living space. It'll add just living space in Wellfleet. It'll add another rental space in Wellfleet. But it's gonna be tricky. In my own neighborhood, it would be very difficult to get an accessory dwelling here. We're grandfathered half-acre lots, so it would be difficult. On a dirt road, on Title V septics here where I live, they're 30 and 35 years of age. So they're tapped out. But I do support Olga's work in presenting a draft for one single bylaw. The efforts that you will put into getting this buttoned down and to town meeting. Thank you.
thank you, Kathleen.
Jerry,
Yeah, David, Rob.
Jerry, I just want to address Kathleen's concerns because she did touch on something very important and significant. The position that she's hypothetically suggested is in other towns. Because this is a function of zoning, it would be called a zoning enforcement officer. And many towns do separate that out from distinctive from the building inspector, because zoning is recognized as its own sort of enforcement thing. So that's not really hypothetical, but that situation does exist in many towns where the building department just sticks strictly with building, and any zoning issues, and this would be a zoning issue because it would be by special permit, is dealt with exclusively by a zoning enforcement officer. And that is a selectman question and a planning board thought, but that's not out of the realm either.
Okay, David.
So I guess that's, yep.
All right, as I announced I'm not looking to cut this short, but as I announced earlier, with all the things that are happening today, my mind's not 100% on where it should be, and I would like to get back to know what's going on. I think what we've accomplished at this moment in time is that we have a few bylaw attempts that have been brought before us. We now have a consensus to work on an AADU combined bylaw. So we've really accomplished a lot tonight by saying, all right, we've redefined it, we've moved forward, trying to get a bylaw on potentially this town meeting. Town council's been notified. I will notify her again and see what we can do to work things out. Now that our board members have received Olga's, Helen's, and just clarify, is it basically the housing authority, have you issued a new one as well, or have you guys, meaning Sharon and Elaine, worked with Olga on that one that was submitted? Is that a fair assumption, Sharon? Sharon, you
you're
gotta,
muted.
okay,
You need to unmute.
Yes, we have
Yeah,
worked
thank you.
together, and I have independently taken mine, Olga's, and Helen's, and laid them side by side and created a chart that contrasted and compared every single item. And we are so close, we are so close, really. The intent is the same in all three. And I think Olga's is really an elegant document. So I think with a couple of tweaks, I think it's a go.
okay. So we basically have two, and I'm not gonna call them proposals, I'm gonna have two submissions. We've got Helen's submission and we've got your submission.
No, Helen's taking hers off the table.
Okay, so we basically have, well, there's some stuff in there, Helen, I'm gonna look at too, but you may take it off the table, but you got some good points in there.
Yeah.
Olga and Sharon and Elaine, basically then what we've got is that document that you supplied, which fills in as a single permit jointly. Then I'm going to ask the board members to take away from this meeting tonight, dive into, write your questions, write your concerns, so we can start line by line, section by section, and start addressing a new bylaw. One of the things I do want to leave with the members, however, and I noticed that Olga and Sharon Elaine kept it in here, under the AADU bylaw presently, we've maxed out 1,200 square foot per unit, but we had in there 3 units, up to 3 units on a property. No property except an existing multifamily prior to zoning has come before and they didn't even have to ask for a special permit. So I think I'm fine in saying no special permit has been submitted to the Board of Appeals for an AADU special permit that exceeded 1 unit.
No, there have been, according to the ZBA list, there's at least there's 2 that were permitted for 2 units. I don't know what the status of them is at this point in time.
Okay. What
Bill?
Are there dates on those?
I'm sorry,
Yes, they're the 2 most recent ones, in fact, or no, close to. There's 2017 I mean, 17, yeah, 2017 and 2018.
Okay.
Okay,
Sharon, can we get a copy of that list? Because Mike was never been able to provide that.
That's, you know what? Your best bet really is to go to Christine Bates, the
Oh, she'll do it. Chris will get it.
CBA.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
that's where
Yep.
we got it from.
okay.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Now to the board members. And I want, of course, would like Olga, Sharon, and Elaine to think about this as well. In tweaking this bylaw to join both of them, I've looked at the number of 3. And with conversations I've had with David, with septic problems, with Helen, with septic problems, and I'll say because of my real estate background, knowing, and along with what Kathleen said, we have in my mind, a major concern in the town of Wellfleet with septic waste disposal. We're handling it, but we have a tremendous amount of 10,000, 15,000, and 20,000 square foot lots that have, by right, by law, grandfathered septic systems on them. Some of them 4, 5, 6 bedroom houses. I'm concerned and feel that the board should really think about in this rewrite that we limit the ADUs and the AADU special permits to 1 unit per property. And
Totally agree.
I would like the board, members, and I'm addressing this to the board members only, because we're the ones running this bylaw. And we're the ones that are gonna bring it into the town of Wellfleet and explain it. I would really like you to consider, I am not suggesting, I'm not telling, just think about whether or not, based on the concerns that have been expressed, whether or not we should limit the number of units in that category. Beth?
I'm really glad to hear you say that, Jerry, because in my mind, it's always been 1 unit. I mean, as I've thought about this over the weeks, I have to say, my mind has been limited to 1 unit. So I naturally went there, and I'm glad to hear you say it, because I never really put it in words. But I see this as 1 additional unit.
And I'm asking you to think about it based on what we have, because in Olga's and Elaine's and Sharon's attempt, they have picked that number 3 and entertained it into that platform, and just to make sure that you are all, and I mean, no disrespect to Beth or to David or Bonnie or Olga, that, you know, those of us on the board that wrote this at one time, and those of us that have been involved, we sometimes catch this kind of stuff, and you might not, as Beth just said, she's always thought 1, but all of a sudden you look at things and you don't look at it with this perspective. Yeah, it'd be nice to get 3 if you had a 5-acre parcel or 4-acre parcel, but I think when we write a zoning bylaw, we try, even though it's by special permit, and, you know, Kathleen knows, because she's gone to a number of Board of Appeals meetings, that, you know, the Board of Appeals, we can write the bylaw, but the Board of Appeals has the final say unless a neighbor appeals it. However, if the bylaw is specific in nature and we cover the bases and look at it, they have to follow that. So I think that some of these things that were in the AADU, such as the number, and probably there's going to be other things when I get a clear head and look at it, really need to be checked off and looked at. Because we look to the fact that when we write the bylaw, we write it with the intent that it will pass on town meeting floor. We have to do that. We've got to work, even if you're going to vote against it. And I'm not saying anybody is, but even if you're going to vote against it, you have got to do the best job you can for the town of Wellfleet in writing this bylaw that is if it was going to pass. So I think we really need to look at that number and see if in fact it makes sense to bring that number down, not only for the best interest for the town of Wellfleet because of septic well and and neighbors on small lots, but also from a point of view of getting that bylaw passed on town meeting floor. So I know there may be some people that disagree with that input, but I think it's something that as planning board members, we ought to at least look at. And hopefully, I know just looking at you, you will do so. So, please do that. If not, I'm gonna continue this to the next meeting and move on and see if we can't finalize this. And because I think with all due respect to the Housing Authority and Alga, with the fact that the rest of the board members have said they would like to see one article, the amount of work you did is, we may tweak it, but you certainly made a step in the right direction and made it easy and easier for the board to look at and to move forward with. So I thank you for that very much.
Thank you.
Bonnie? And then I'll get to you, Kathleen. Bonnie?
Yeah, so can it be, can we clarify what we are asking the working group who is working on this bylaw? Can we kind of clarify what we would like to see by the next meeting?
No, I think Bonnie, okay.
No,
No, I think
No.
at this point, with,
Town
and I
council.
thought I touched bases, but maybe I wasn't clear enough. The Housing Authority with Elaine and Sharon and Olga have done their job at this point. They brought the point to the planning board. You as the planning board members have voted to proceed with trying to get an ADU in place. They have done their best effort to work on information towards a bylaw, but it is not their job unless they're going to go in a different avenue and write a bylaw on their own for the town of Wellfleet. It is now in our bailiwick. We can certainly ask them questions in the future, but the work now is fallen into the members of the planning board to start writing a bylaw.
Yay.
That is our job. They've done their job at this point. I'm certainly not saying goodbye to them because I know they'll be hanging around, but I think, all due respect, its job now falls to us. So that's why I've asked you for the next meeting is to really look over now as a planning board, as a member, and look at their proposal, check it with the ADU that we have on record that has already passed, and start working on individual sections that might need to be changed, added to, and tweaked. Did that answer your question, Bonnie?
Well, no, I just want to make sure that if that is our task for the next
That's your task.
meeting, what do you want from us by the next meeting? Do you want each of us to make some written comments for the rest
Yes.
of the group?
Yes.
Or
I want
what?
you to take that. I want you to take that bylaw because now we've got to write a bylaw.
and rip it apart. Come up with
Rip it apart.
questions.
So we've got, and we're gonna do that, and we don't take offense with each other, and when we do that is we need to tweak something that on town meeting floor, we are not thrown a curve, preferably not thrown a curve by a voter that we didn't think about it. And that's why as a chair, I rely on David, I rely on Alfred to Helen's point. Olga that's involved and have been involved with this, with their expertise, and say, okay, if we can tear it apart and we can rip it apart and we can satisfy ourselves with a bylaw, then we know that when we get on town meeting floor, we are going to be able to answer most of their questions. And if they like it, fine. If they don't, that's their decision accordingly. Okay,
Okay.
good. Kathleen, I saw,
Yeah.
you're all set? Okay. Olga,
Since you thought that it was a good start, I would like to remind people that along with the document that is the bylaw with nothing, just the bylaw, I also did one with commentary. And that's might be a starting point for taking it apart line by line. For instance, the very last part, penalties. I just put in some off the top of my head, almost. I mean, I had ideas from Sharon and Elaine. You know, we don't want it to be rented seasonally. I don't know how to make those legalese, but I think if you start with my spreadsheet, I think we can get a long way.
that's what I'm hoping they will do.
Okay, but it
I
might
want the death
focus.
I want the death penalty.
While we're on that, and I do, and I know I see Helen's hand, I'm gonna, it's sort of like what David did with, okay, we can call it whatever we want, but let's get to the basic. It is you're establishing and allowing 2 family dwellings on a lot. Under 6.21.5 penalties. And I just had an occasion briefly, and I discussed this with you, with the members before at one of the meetings, that I did talk to Paul, the building inspector, when we started doing this about enforcement. And Paul happened to tell me that he was just called in on a unit by, didn't tell me who, but I would assume it was a neighbor, complaining about a unit that was being rented and shouldn't be. And Paul went out on an enforcement issue. And Paul confirmed what I thought is that, okay, he determined that it was being rented as a rental unit. And it qualified because it had a kitchen with a stove. Whether it had 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom didn't matter. It met Board of Health regulations. All he could do under his job description legally is tell them to remove the stove, and that diminished it from a rental unit to basically a 2-bedroom addition to the house. That is one of the things, and be prepared, members, and I know David is going to hear it and knows it, and I know, and Alfred is aware of it, is that we can try and do the best job we can, but if someone has got through the AADU already and they got a special permit and they're not renting it affordable anymore, got through the unit, which means they got through Board of Health as those adding those additional bedrooms, or they took the bedrooms out of their house. The most the building inspector could do is walk in and say, pull the stove out of there. And they could still rent it as an Airbnb or a B&B. And really, there is nothing we could do about it. So those are one of the things, and please expect that on town meeting floor, that someone will bring up that discussion. But there is, I think we can impose some fines, but the minute that stove comes out of there and they're in line for the number of bedrooms, there's nothing we can do, that unit stays. It's not like the unit has to come down. It's not like the unit, nobody can walk in the door. So I'm gonna continue to check with Board of Health. I'm gonna continue to check with Town Council, and I'm gonna continue to be online with Paul and talk, but just keep that in mind. Okay? Other than that, I'm just gonna, Helen, did you have anything or are you okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the board, I made some very specific suggestions about about the working groups draft submitted by Olga. But, you know, I had 2 long conference calls with all of them, so I'm sort of part of it. And I thank them for inviting me to join them. I'm gonna submit those suggestions to all of you, and you can do what you want with them. Okay?
Submit them to, I know you know, submit them to Rebecca and she'll forward them to us.
Yes, but heads up, I'm doing it just because I went over it in the meeting. It'll go in the minutes anyway. But you can use them or not, but I would particularly pay attention to what I said about using the word resident.
No,
Okay?
anything of that
And-
is welcome. You know
And
that.
David and Jared, remember, you cannot get this kind of unit unless the earth under the lot can accommodate the septic waste. And that is
That's another
the
story.
most-
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
another story. And, you know, whether it's 2 dwellings or 4 units, 3 of which are, you know, accessories, it can't happen on that lot, no variances. And
Helen,
that
I'm-
language,
Helen, I am going
Yeah.
to,
I'm done.
because no, that's okay. I'm going to expect that question
Will
on
come
town
up.
meeting floor when we get there from someone. So I'm going to try and have, without putting town council on the spot at a town meeting, I'm going to try and have something from town council, clear as day. And talking to Hillary, that I have the correct answer when that question is asked, either at a meeting or on town meeting floor, as to how that is addressed. So I plan on doing that. Plan on looking into
Well,
that.
just put in the zoning bylaw. You know, it's almost
You can't
all,
put
it's almost,
health- You cannot put health into a zoning bylaw.
no, but you have your section F. Anyway, never mind. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, so long as we get it in writing, as long as the working group gets it in writing, then they can consider it. That's all I'm saying.
that's where we'll go.
Yeah.
All right. Minutes. December 15th. Any
Okay.
changes, deletions?
Bye.
You guys signing off. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Bye.
I
Thank
move
you.
to accept the minutes as written.
Any second?
I'll second. Bonnie,
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any new business? If not,
Jerry, I've
Yeah.
got something, the Paul Fowler here,
Paul,
the building inspector.
I'm looking right by you through this whole meeting, Paul. I am so sorry.
No, don't be sorry at all. I enjoyed listening in, and it was a good discussion. I was talking with Shannon Holt, the Barnstable County floodplain manager, and there is a new Massachusetts model floodplain bylaw that
Uh-oh.
to be adopted by communities to participate in the insurance rating system. So this is something, I'll get you all the language on it. And it's something that'll have to go into our bylaws, either in whole or in part. It'll be up to the board to discuss how they want to put this into our bylaw, but at some point it'll have to be put in. I don't think we could get it on for this year's town meeting, but it would have to be by the spring of 2022 at the latest.
Okay, would you do me a favor, Paul? When we did the floodplain bylaw, yes, it became a zoning bylaw and the planning board put it in. But what the planning board did, and the planning board realized, this is going back to David Mead Fox's letter, as to who really has more knowledge in a certain field. The Conservation Committee drew 99% of that bylaw. They passed it off to us. We basically boilerplated it and said, okay, fine, and put it on the town meeting floor as a zoning bylaw, coming from the planning board. So would you not only send the planning board that information, but would you send Conscom that information as well?
Yes, yeah.
And I'll get a hold of
A copy
conservation
of this also.
and let them know that I would like to see them take the lead and get their input as well.
Sure, absolutely.
Does that make sense to you? Knowing now
Yes, it
why?
does. Yeah, Hillary's already has a copy of this.
Okay,
It's just that you will have to be the ones that put it into the,
yeah, and that's why we did it before, and I'm sure Hillary will bring it up, but at least if both you and I touch that, dot the I and cross the T and say, okay, at least we forwarded it, didn't rely on somebody else, you forwarded it to conservation and CC'd us, then we know both of us can't say that we didn't see it. Good.
yeah, it's quite lengthy. I just wanted to give you a heads up on it.
Did they change much, Paul, from what you can tell or not? Or you haven't got that deep into it?
It changed a lot. I mean, there's,
Ooh, in a scary way, no doubt.
not really. You'll see. I'll forward it to you. There's like 27 pages, so there's
Okay, yeah,
plenty to look at.
yeah.
Thank you.
It's a lot.
And I hope when I quoted you at any time during this meeting that I quoted you correctly, because I would assume that you would jump in and tell me I didn't.
Yeah, I'd jump in there. You know,
Thank you.
that was fine.
Jerry, he was looking over your shoulder the whole time.
I was too focused on the members and I was just looking right by. I didn't even look at the name. I'm sorry, Paul. And I will get in to see you as soon as we possibly can so we can chat when this COVID thing is over.
Absolutely.
It will be over soon.
It's over tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. All right, so the next meeting will in fact be our regular meeting. We will have, unless there's an approval not required, we're gonna try and just simplify and get this accessory dwelling unit as limited as we possibly can as the only thing on the agenda and really start hammering away. So,
So Jerry, January 20th is another ominous day.
It was a Super Bowl?
yeah, it is in one form. You
Cool.
want to try
Oh
and
my
make it the
God.
Tuesday, the 19th?
The night before would be better for me.
How do the other members feel and how does Rebecca feel?
Uh,
I can do the Tuesday night before.
Okay, other members?
That isn't a select board meeting?
Well, hold on,
Rebecca?
I might not be able to. No, your select board meeting is on the 12th.
yeah.
Thank you. She's ours now.
Yeah, I know. We clarified that before you came on. Yes, we got the news.
No, I heard that. I heard that.
Oh, did you? Olga,
Do we get to make a counteroffer?
Olga,
Two things.
Mm,
Do we have a schedule of meetings for next year? I can't remember if that
Yes,
was.
it is posted online under the planning board meeting schedule of 2021.
And then
It
you'll
will-
change? the
no,
tr-
it will
January
read
15th?
it will, Olga, to answer your question, it will read the first and third Wednesday of each month.
Except next time.
Right,
Exactly.
and it has to stay the schedule,
Extraordinary
and
circumstance.
you guys change it at the meetings if you need to. The only reason you're changing it is because it's inauguration day.
Right,
We-
but
We have the
will you
right,
post that on the chart?
yeah, what we have the right when we're setting meetings a year in advance like this, we normally meet on a Monday and a first and third
Right.
Monday of every month. However, sometimes when we have a quorum, sometimes when we have new business, we'll meet 3 times. Sometimes we'll change the dates. We have the ability to do so because things
Okay.
come up. But at least we set a norm date so people will know ahead of time that's the first and the third. It's up to them to make sure that in fact they check beforehand.
All right.
That was
My
one
other-
question. What's the next one?
The other point was if people have written changes, tweaks to what's already been submitted, could they put that in a submission so we can think about it a week ahead instead of just hammering it out our next meeting?
Well, no, okay.
Okay,
If they have anything in writing, they should submit at least prior to the noon deadline on Thursday. Rebecca, now that we're moving it to Tuesday, are we still good with Thursday? Or do we move it to Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Right. So the next meeting I'll go would be if you have something in writing, or if any member has anything in writing specifically, that doesn't mean we can't brainstorm and do things at the meeting. But if
Right.
you have something specifically in writing you want all the members to think about, then it needs to be in before 12 o'clock on the previous Wednesday to the next meeting, because
Okay.
we've moved it up a day. If it comes in, no, I don't want to get into that. Let's just say that that
No.
should give everybody enough time
Yeah, that's good.
to review it.
Right.
Okay?
And I encourage people to do that so
Yes,
we can
Because it-
jumpstart.
it's helpful, yes. Any other questions? If not, I adjourn. It's adjourned.
Oh, Jerry,
Yes.
Jerry,
Oh, David, yeah.
I want to kick that, I make a motion to kick that housekeeping item down to the next meeting. You have it listed?
Oh, damn it, David, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. Just move it to the next meeting because you have it posted.
What house?
David, David, I got a question for you.
Yeah,
To all the other members, David found a definition that was not in the use table for accessory dwelling.
well, either way, it's in the use table, but it's not in the definitions.
And
So
what
we
is,
have to either create a definition or eliminate it from the use table.
and what is it
one or
in the
the
use
other.
table, David?
In the use table, we have, well, if we're going to open this, we're going to open this. If you look at the use regulations,
No, I want to open it. I just want to know
Yep.
what it is. Go ahead.
affordable dwelling, that's in the use regulations.
Okay, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm gonna put it on the next agenda, but David, will you think about the fact that since we are talking about accessory dwelling unit, that
Yep.
if we don't take it out, but leave it, but change the word, we now at least have something in the use table.
We can do that later, because right now I can go pull an application for that and have all kinds of shit fun with it. You can't
Okay,
stop
but
me
the
from
only,
doing nothing.
but the only way, remember, because I know you know this, but remember, the only way we can stop that from being used is literally advertising. Which-
Cool,
which
so
we
shenanigans
can do,
are
David.
par for the course is what you're telling me?
No, what we can do, David, remember, is what we can
Yeah.
do is I can put it on the next
Is
meeting
advertise it.
to delete
Okay,
it.
all right.
We can then advertise it, have a hearing.
Yeah, and then we can prevent it, yeah.
Then we have 6 months where that is in fact law. And if we have a town meeting and vote on it prior to those 6 months, we're all set. If not, we have to have a new hearing. But that freezes that, so long as we have a hearing.
That's what we need to do. So that's
Okay,
next
So
time.
I will keep that, Rebecca, on the agenda for the next meeting.
Thank you. Yep.
You're welcome, David.
You
Other
got
than
it.
that, thank
Yep.
you all very much. Have a good night.
Bye, everyone. Have a good night.
Take
Hey.
care.
All right.